And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome in to Shooting the Breeze with PWTorch Assistant Editor Zack Heydorn. Today, we shoot the breeze on all things Forbidden Door 2022, the first ever New Japan and AEW Super Show pay-per-view event from Chicago, Illinois. Want to just chat about the show. I was in the building. Lucky enough to be at the United Center yesterday covering the event for the Torch, and man, it was a pretty interesting experience, pretty fun experience, pretty wild in general to kind of see all that happen, especially all that happened in the lead up to it. And if you kind of been following my work at the Torch throughout the last few weeks, you know that I was not particularly high on what they built for Forbidden Door. I thought it had a lot of messy components, missing chapters and stories, no stories altogether. But I always caveated that with, I'm pretty sure that the show itself would be very, very good top to bottom from an in-ring perspective. And that's exactly how things went. And I think that's exactly how, in the building anyway, most of the audience felt, too, that it just was a good night of pro wrestling in that building, in that environment with that show. Now, does that mean it was a well-built show? No. Does that mean there was money left on the table? Absolutely. But does that mean that the people who order the pay-per-view and who were in the building to watch kind of this historic event, they delivered on that too. And so that's a really good thing. So a couple of notes before we get into kind of a match breakdown here and some star ratings on all the matches. From an in-person perspective, a couple of things stood out in general. One, just being the show environment, man, it was hot. It was really a hot environment. That audience was ready to go. And that's without CM Punk, without Bryan Danielson, without Kenny Omega, like without three of the top AEW stars that AEW has. You still had this rabid fan base that was just rearing to go and ready to go. I was at Hell in a Cell a couple weeks ago, early June, I guess. Gosh, more than a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that stood out from that show was before the show started, everybody in the building was just was there hanging out on their phones, checking whatever, social media, talking to their friends, but it was very calm. There was not a buzz of anticipation in the audience. Even in the smaller building of Allstate Arena, which is where Hell in a Cell took place, you didn't get the sense of, man, these people are going to, fly out of their chairs. They're so excited. That wasn't there. Polar opposite for Forbidden Door. Just complete night and freaking day. This audience, from the moment that first pre-show buy-in match started, and really until the end, was hot for this show and excited to be there. And that's a feather in the cap of AEW. No doubt. There's a lot to be said about the build to these matches, and that I've said on Fireside Chat with Tyler Sage on my On the Canvas PWTorch VIP audio show. I've said it all. But on this night in the building itself, pretty hot environment. There was a lot of matches. So I was wondering and looking for the audience to kind of hit that lull that they've hit in other at other pay-per-views that AEW puts on. And there was a little bit of that. There was a little bit of that in the Thunder Rosa Tony Storm match in particular, very much a bathroom break match, unfortunately. But there wasn't that fall off the cliff moment where it's like you've got all this momentum, you're building, and then boom, fall off the cliff. That didn't happen. It was a relatively sustained batch of energy from the crowd throughout the entire night. And I think it's a testament to a couple things. One, they built the card properly. They loaded the back half of the card with the big stars and let those guys go to work, and have the best matches that had the most time, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought it was a well constructed card from that perspective, and helped kind of keep that momentum going. So smart work there. I still would make it shorter, no doubt. I mean, it was nobody got super tired, but it still didn't need to be, for like almost 4 hours long. Okay, all right, Tony Khan. Also, from an in-ring perspective, or not in-ring, an environment perspective, being in the building, man, the merch lines. Holy, I said this on Wrestling Night in America. I'll say it again here. My gosh, there are some dedicated AEW fans that wait in these crazy long lines for merch. I hope that they weren't disappointed in what the merch kind of selection was, because it was very much one note. There was some Forbidden Door stuff, there was some AEW brand stuff, and then there was a new CM Punk hoodie. I mean, yes, there were like here and there some trinkets and some, gadgets or toys or whatever you want to call it, but for the most part, that's what it was. And so, yeah, you had a lot of people waiting in those lines to hit those merchandise stands, and again, it speaks to the passionate fan base. That's for sure, absolutely. So let's see, yeah, let's get into the show. Why not? Shooting the Breeze on Forbidden Door 2022. Build be damned, right? Build be damned. Stories be damned too. Like this show, Forbidden Door, the concept needed Sunday night. It needed the wrestling ring. That's what it needed. There was holes in the build to all of these matches across the board, either holes or giant gaps of logic, money left on the table in terms of presentation. All that stands true. And I think AEW deserves criticism for that, because they put it out on television in front of 1 million people. It didn't go over so hot. They lost some of those viewers. I'm sure they'll get them back. I don't think it's anything that's going to completely derail them at this point, but it's just an ineffective way of going about booking the show. However, when you got it in the ring and the bell rang for the show to start, man, that talent, the talent took over. Like the talent took over. And when you think of it from that perspective, you think of it from the perspective of, man, you've got some of the best pro wrestlers in the world. They saved it. I said in my roundtable report for PWTorch VIP members that the talent on this show was like the Avengers swooping in to make a save in a Marvel movie. Like at that point, once the bell rang, build out the window. Stories kind of out the window. And it was just the talent on display, having wrestling matches, and having really great wrestling matches that pulled a strong reaction out of the crowd. That's the point, right? That's what we're trying to do here. Maybe could they have more pay-per-view buys? Had they built the show better? 100%, absolutely. But we're here not really talking about that. We're talking about the show itself, and this show was a hit for those that were in the building watching. They started things off with the one of many multi-person matches: Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara and Minoru Suzuki against Eddie Kingston, Wheeler Yuta, and Shota Umino. This was an awesome opener. This was a high-energy opener. It had like your clear heels and baby faces for the most part. We'll get to some confusion in a minute, but it worked. I mean, it was real crisp action. The pace was good. But the best thing about it, in my eyes, being in the building, was it built up to the right moments, and there were two key moments that stood out. One being the Minoru Suzuki and Eddie Kingston kind of face off, and then slap fest. That was great. That was well done. And not only was it well done from Eddie's perspective and Suzuki's perspective, because they obviously pulled it off, but the way they got there put strong heat on Chris Jericho, which was the point. If you remember, Eddie wanted Chris Jericho to stay in the match so that they could have it out, because Eddie wants to get his hands on Chris Jericho ahead of Blood and Guts. And then through that's how Suzuki enters the match. Jericho tags him in instead. Crowd goes wild. Just a good moment. A smart way to book a match. Smart way to book the psychology of that moment. You get a lot out of it when they do it that way. You get the moment of Kingston and Suzuki, but you also get some heat on Jericho at the same time because he's running away scared. So I really like that moment, and the match was constructed around that coming together. The other moment that was really strong, it was really a series of moments, and that's the Shota Umino stuff with Jericho. Man, that guy it looked like $1 million out there, right? Like, I think in 5 years' time, we're going to be talking about Umino, doing some damage in the G1, doing some damage at Wrestle Kingdom, maybe even sooner than that. But New Japan has a talented act there without question, and Jericho helped make him. Umino lost, but the way he was able to sell, and then the way he was able to lay in his own offense, where he created that doubt that, hey, maybe Umino is going to win this thing. It was really effective. And it painted Umino as someone to pay attention to. And Jericho gave him a lot. He really gave them a lot. The heels going over made perfect sense. The stipulation for blood and guts was on the line in terms of who gets to enter first, which means who will have the one-man advantage first. Heels get that. For the blood and guts match, babyfaces already have a hill to overcome. Smart booking 101 in a lot of ways. So this very much worked for me. I have this clocked in at 3.25 stars. Good way to start the show. High energy way to start the show. Thumbs up. Then we got more multi-person stuff, but a little more defined, with FTR versus United Empire versus Roppongi Vice for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles and the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team titles, both on the line, winner take all. Look, it's not that United Empire was bad in this match. It's not that Roppongi was bad in this match, because neither of those teams were. But it was the FTR show. I mean, it was the FTR show all the way from the moment that they walked out. They had the pop that they wanted, big babyface reaction, the strongest of any of the three teams. And then the story revolved around them. Like, yeah, you had moments where Roppongi and United Empire were going at it, but the story of the hook of the match was, number one, Harwood injuring his shoulder. Number two, Cash Wheeler having to kind of fend for himself out there and try to fight and claw and win and or not lose before Harwood can come back out. And then you kind of had the climax of the match with Harwood walking back out. Injured, he leaves, comes back out, he's taped up, and he goes, and they go on to win. And so there's psychology there for sure. But it's risky. It's risky, and it almost went off the rails. And here's why. Dax Harwood, I mean, look, him and Wheeler together are FTR, but Harwood this year in particular has been on like another level, a higher level than Wheeler, because he's had some significant singles matches against CM Punk, against Adam Cole, against Cash Wheeler, and he's delivered, and so he's really kind of opened some eyes, I think, in terms of being a guy that is known for big matches. And so because he's kind of built that momentum, Harwood leaving the match slowed it down, in the onset. Like, it slowed everything down, and it kind of brought the crowd down, because it's a bummer, right? Like, you have this guy who you want to see him in particular win the tag team titles, and now he's gone. And so, like, that rooting interest isn't there. If the fact that the show was snake bit already with injuries, I think just had a lot of people in the audience going, "Oh man, are you kidding me?" And yeah, that's what they wanted, so that the pop would be big and the investment would be there when Harwood came back out. But you risk losing the audience forever at that point. But it was a risk that was well calculated and worked in the end, because when Harwood ran out, man, there's your real thunderous pop, and you go on and you win that match from there. I like this match. I have it at three stars. FTR wins, and now they are both the Ring of Honor tag team champions and the IWGP tag team champions. There's one set of tag team titles that are not theirs yet in kind of like the ecosystem that Tony Khan has built, and that is the AEW World Tag Team titles. And whose waste are those around? Oh, yeah, the Young Bucks. Young Bucks versus FTR 3 is going to be a thing. They each have one win against the other. Now they've got like 3 championships involved. Like, that's going to be big. Like, that's your match right there. If it's some kind of, maybe it's 2 out of 3 falls, or maybe it's, I hope it's not this, but maybe it's an Iron Man match or something. Like, whatever that third match is, like, that to me is like pay-per-view main event level worthiness at this point. Like, that's where this feud is. And the fact that FTR has those titles now, I think it's huge. And I think it makes that match with the Young Bucks, the rubber match, something to watch, and something that and a very big ace in the hole that Tony Khan has to play whenever he wants to play it. Okay, we move then to Pac versus Clark Connors versus Miro versus Malachi Black, All Atlantic Championship. What's that? Yeah, still can't tell you. Still can't tell you. And a good example of the poor build that we saw to this match. But I digress. And this was action-packed. Like, that's the best way to put it. This was an action-packed car crash style match. All 4 guys kind of just threw caution into the wind, worked at this crazy pace, and just got a really fun match out of it. Like, I wouldn't say there was a ton of psychology. I wouldn't say there's a story outside of the tournament. And that's why I think the way they went here worked. Like, when you think of tournament, you think of like athletic contest, right? And you think of, you just do what you can to win to get to the next round. And this match, I thought, made sense the way it was laid out to like fall into that tournament mindset and psychology. You didn't need personal storylines here. It'd be good to know what the championship meant, or what it was for, or how it was going to be defended, and all that fun jazz about the championship. Would be good to know that. But the bottom line is, these guys just wrestled. They were in a tournament and they wrestled to win it. And so the athleticism shined bright from a talented group of 4 guys. And so I like this match a lot too. 3.5 stars is where I've got this thing. Real quick on Clark Connors. Much like Shota Umino, Connors elevated himself in this match. And it was a different way, because you didn't have like the sympathetic Connors kind of getting beat up, and you didn't have that. But his athleticism was on display. He elevated his stock just there. And so he should, my guess is, he's going to get a stronger look, and not in terms of like how he actually looks, but a stronger look from the bookers. And get him into something that can capitalize on that momentum. That'd be the smart thing to do. That's for sure. As I said, 3.5 stars for this one. From there, we continue with the multi-man matches. Thunder Rosa versus Toni Storm for the AEW Women's World Championship. This was a tough go. I mean, there's no other way about it. Unfortunately, this being in the building, if you couldn't tell on television, this was like the bathroom break match where people were like, all right, well, I gotta drink something. I've got to eat something. I've got to go to the bathroom. All right, well, I guess it's going to be during this match. And it was unfortunate, because it really took most of the energy out of the building, as far as the match itself. Like, it was really hard for the match to connect when you had a distracted audience like that. I thought the match was fine. Not better than that, though. Not better than fine. And, Storm and Thunder Rosa, both fine too, but it had this element of being flat. And in a lot of ways, you can't be surprised by that, because the build to the match was very flat too. I picked Toni Storm here because I thought she could kind of unflatten the kind of the perception of the women's title. Had you gone to that and eject it with some kind of with momentum via a big title change. But they just didn't go that way. They didn't go that way. And Thunder Rosa's still champion. Again, flat match, flat build. I give it 2 stars. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about that one? Let me know in the comments down below. I want to just kind of strike up a conversation as to what everybody thought about that women's match. Because it also was the only match that didn't match up with the formula of New Japan and AEW colliding against one another. Didn't do that either. Love to hear your thoughts, though. Let me know down in the comments. Okay, now we got one of the better matches of the night, I think. Will Ospreay versus Orange Cassidy for the IWGP United States Championship. This was a great match. This was a really awesome match. And I think, you know what you're going to get from Will Ospreay, right? Like, you know that he's going to have a good match. Like, you know that. The proof is there. He's got great moves. He's got great charisma. He's so talented. The wild card was Orange Cassidy. Not that he's not talented, but how is an act like that, with a gimmick like that, going to blend with like the athleticism of a Will Ospreay? And man, it was Cassidy was great with it. I think he elevated himself and showed and gave the character some range by getting a little more serious, and being a guy that wants to win, that really wants to win. And I thought for the first time in quite some time, if ever, you saw that out of Orange Cassidy. You saw, I don't want to say edge, but I kind of do want to say edge, because you saw the competitiveness, I guess, the competitive nature of Orange Cassidy come out and want to win. And man, he can bring it. We know he can go in the ring. Like, that's never been in question, but does he? And here he did. And I thought it was a really, really well done match. Will Ospreay was Will Ospreay. And again, I say that in the best way possible. He showed within this match why he is one of the best wrestlers in the world, period. And in a live environment, and I saw him wrestle Jon Moxley at the Windy City New Japan event. This was different. That very much felt like a Moxley style match, whereas this was more of a wrestling match. And I don't want to say technical, because it wasn't necessarily that. Like, it had the high flying, it had all of Orange Cassidy's signature moves, but this is like your more run of the mill pro wrestling match. Again, said with all the respect in the world, it was a great match. But Ospreay in this environment was so smooth. I mean, the way he just kind of flowed around the ring, he knew exactly where he was. His timing was impeccable. Like, he didn't miss anything. And that's saying something, given how much he does in wrestling matches. I like this match a lot. Ospreay winning was the only way to go. I mean, you'd like to convince yourself maybe that Orange Cassidy is going to win the singles title. I think he probably will at some point. Tony Khan on a media call this week called Orange Cassidy one of the most marketable talents that he has in AEW. Well, okay, let's see you put your money where your mouth is, Tony, and get a belt on. I think he can hold that just fine. The guys did a really good job. As I said, Ospreay is going to win this, right? I mean, to me, that was a shoo-in, just because he just won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, or United States Championship. And I don't think Orange Cassidy's going to Japan for any long period of time. So, you got to keep that belt on Ospreay. I mean, that's what you do. But both guys were able to create an environment that you could sense that, hey, maybe Cassidy can win this thing. A little bit of doubt. They just kind of like Inception style dropped in your brain. Yeah, so that was there too. But really good match. 4.25 stars. That's what I give that one. Just, creative, fast pace, hard hitting. It had it all. It really had it all. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Claudio Castagnoli. Worst kept secret on earth. Come on, guys. We don't need to be spoiling that type of thing, right? Like, my goodness. No spoilers necessary on that. But Claudio Castagnoli, formerly known as Cesaro in WWE, makes his AEW debut. He takes Daniel Bryan's place against Zack Sabre Jr. And then wins in your straight up Zack Sabre Jr. way. And it was funny being in the building for a Zack Sabre Jr. match. Really, really funny, because you could tell the people that knew him and the people that didn't based on what on what they were saying and the comments that he had. And I got so much of, hey, what's with this hold? Can't you just do something else? It's boring. Where meanwhile I'm sitting there at the edge of my seat, like super, super excited about what I'm seeing. So it was fun to be in the arena for Zack Sabre Jr. match because of that. Like, and I get it, right? Like I get that, hey, you don't want to see somebody have to do that over and over. But the bottom line is this worked. This worked really well. Castagnoli and Zack Sabre Jr. had a good chemistry together. Their styles fit. I think the surprise delivered. And in the end, it clicked. It worked nicely. Claudio gets the W, which that was a smart way to book that match, given that they've got Blood and Guts coming up in a few days here. So yeah, this went exactly how I figured it would go. Given that I figured it was Claudio, and I figured it'd have a good match, and I figured Claudio would win, and that's what happened. 4 stars for this one from me. And then we get into the 2 main events. The co-main event first: Jay White versus Kazuchika Okada versus Adam Cole versus Adam Page for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. Man, you knew this was stocked full of talent, like when you read it on paper, but then seeing it happen in the ring, like seeing those guys come out and then stand in each of their corners, the audience felt that. Like the audience felt that, and they rumbled and rumbled and rumbled and rumbled as those guys came out. And as the introductions happened, they rumbled and rumbled and rumbled some more. And then the bell rang, and then the crowd explodes in anticipation and excitement, reminiscent of Cody at All In all those years back, where you just kind of had this natural reaction of buildup and anticipation grow and then just explode. And you had that here for all 4 guys together. Okada got the biggest pop of the night, and therefore the biggest pop of this match. And Jay White stood out in particular as maybe the strongest presence on the show. That guy, out of everybody else on the card, he was interested in getting heat. True heel heat. He wanted that audience to hate him, even when they were out there kind of happy that they were seeing him, right? That was his mission. I think he accomplished that. He also, very much at the beginning of the match, you kind of see like Adam Cole not take a back seat. That's the wrong word, but Adam Cole kind of, be reactive in the ring, react to what others are doing, react to what Okada's doing, or react to White or what have you. Same thing with Adam Page, very reactive. Jay White at the beginning controls that thing right out of the gate. He starts the match by walking to the middle of the ring. He's talking trash. Just really good work. And on a show where there wasn't a lot of that kind of openly heel stuff, he brought it to the table and looked every bit the star because of it. Match started out nice. I think that match started out fine. And then it just hit this kind of plodding along pace. I think it overstayed its welcome in that regard, which was exasperated by the fact that the finish was messed up. And by all reports indicate right now that Adam Cole suffered a concussion during the match. The angle at the end, the finish was weird. You had Okada go for the Rainmaker, but not hit it. He doesn't hit it. And that's because Adam Cole kind of collapses to the mat. As soon as that happens, Jay White gets in the ring, boom, hits Blade Runner on Okada, but then jumps over and pins Adam Cole, who hadn't got a move done to him. Really. So that was messy. And the count seemed fast. It was just messy. It was a messy finish to a match that overstayed its time. That was still pretty darn good in the end when all things were said and done. So I've got this at 3.25 stars. Jay White retains the title if that wasn't clear before. And then we've got finally the main event, the AEW Interim World Championship on the line. Jon Moxley versus Hiroshi Tanahashi, both qualified to get into that match. This was a success. The match felt huge in the building, and I think it because of the intensity that Jon Moxley brings and the presence that Hiroshi Tanahashi commands and respects and then gets. set a really great tone right out of the gate, good foundation. Tanahashi would build on that with his psychology. You know, he can't move the way that he used to. He cannot move the way that he used to, period. Can't do it. But, man, he can think. He can think. And he did think. And he knew when to sell. He knew when to fire up. He knew what offense to hit when. If you go back and watch that match, and I haven't yet, but if you go back and watch that thing, like, he doesn't do that many moves. He just does them at the right times. And so the moves that he does are super, super memorable. Yeah, that's right, ambulance. Like, they're super memorable because he does them at the right time and with the right emphasis. He's like a poster guy for, hey, less is more. And this match greatly paid off for that. Moxley was really the only choice to go with here, guys. Like, I know, Tanahashi would have been fun, and the audience certainly wanted that to happen. But Jon Moxley makes the most sense. You put the belt on, maybe a guy who's carried it before like he has, or, you just let him ride. And I guess I should say. You put it back on him, and then you let him ride it out until you get to that big match down the road against CM Punk for the undisputed AEW World Title. Like, that's the roadmap now. And it's kind of interesting to see because you don't always know where Tony Khan's going, but maybe it's a year from now, maybe it's 2 years from now. But, they're on the path to Punk versus Moxley naturally. That's where they are, interim champion versus the real world champion, who's the undisputed champ. That's there on paper. They can play that at any time. And I think this really kind of put a light onto what Jon Moxley does really well out there. I don't know. That was a really good match. I like the idea of when you put just stars together in a ring and you just go. You let them go. You let them read the audience. You let them read the crowd. You let them interact and engage and do what they have to do. That, that's part of wrestling. That's what wrestling is. So, whenever Punk Moxley happens, that's going to be big business. That'll be quite the treat. as a quick sidebar, I love this main event. It's my match of the night pick. 4.5 stars is what I gave it on PWTorch.com. Moxley winning the interim world championship for the second time, the only 2-time world champion in AEW history. Whew, that's it, folks. Thank you so much for joining me. You can check out some really unique content on the YouTube channel. Hope you guys click like right there, subscribe, enable your notifications so that every time we've got a good new batch of content that's coming up. Just do that. And again, subscribe and tell a friend. We've got some really fun stuff going. We got some fun stuff planned. We got some fun stuff that just posted. A really interesting interview with Leo Rush that I want to point everybody to, and then a really telling interview with Jordan Grace, the current Impact Knockouts champion. That's up at YouTube right now. So give that a go, give that a check. Make sure you're heading to PWTorch.com all day, every day for your wrestling fix. Not just news. We have news too, but hits and misses columns, other editorial columns, all the show reports for every show that you can imagine throughout your wrestling week, right? That's there. So give that a go. That's it. Thank you, guys. I'm PWTorch Assistant Editor Zack Heydorn. It's a pleasure, as always, and we'll catch you guys next time.